He was born without talent, but after being adopted by the mightiest SS rank Mage, his only weapon was sheer willpower. Through endless training, his hands bled, his bones ached, yet his resolve never wavered. Time moved on, and the child who once couldn't produce a single spell became someone others feared. But there was a secret, one even his master didn't know. Buried within him was a dark magic, strong enough to shift the world's balance. It all begins in a shattered city, where a woman discovers a boy named Lloyd, silently staring into the distance. What he sees isn't revealed yet, but the woman feels confident this boy might be the key to defeating the Demon King. She drops her guard and hugs Lloyd, who remains motionless. Soon after, she takes him to her home and shows off a spell that creates fire in her hand. It's Lloyd's first time seeing something so fantastical, but the woman commands him to copy it if he wants to eat dinner. With zero training or explanation, Lloyd attempts the spell. By day's end, he manages to produce a flicker of flame. She's mildly impressed, but not enough. She scorches him with fire, saying he still has a long path to walk. The next day, she teaches him a water spell by stomping on the ground. Lloyd replicates it on the first try, though it only makes the ground moist. The woman, unimpressed, punishes him by soaking him completely. She later teaches him wind spells, and as time passes, Lloyd also learns to control ice. In a few months, he crafts an ice statue in her image. Lloyd, now calling her his master, believes he's finally earned her approval. But she isn't satisfied, she thinks he still lacks real power. To show the gap between them, she animates the statue to grab Lloyd, enlarges it, and smashes it apart. Seeing the massive difference, Lloyd becomes more determined and trains harder than ever. One evening, his master falls ill after drinking too much. Surprisingly, Lloyd heals her instantly, revealing she had also taught him healing spells. She gives him a hug for the quick recovery, but claims it still doesn't earn her praise, and tells him to get back to training. After several more months, Lloyd's master is seen clutching a mysterious book. She looks uneasy and is startled when Lloyd walks in. The book slips from her hands, and as Lloyd picks it up, something activates, causing him to faint. His master realizes from this strange event that Lloyd might be destined to become the chosen one too. Her reaction also hints that she might share the same fate, though it's not clearly confirmed. Still, she doesn't want Lloyd to repeat the same error she once made. Fearing he may become too confident in his powers, she gently kisses his forehead as he sleeps, casting a spell that likely restrains his abilities. The next morning, she introduces Lloyd to the concept of a white mage. She explains that Lloyd is also a white mage, someone who typically uses supportive magic to help others. As a practice task, she instructs him to use healing magic on an apple tree to enlarge a single fruit. Lloyd succeeds, but his master shows how she can instantly cause the whole tree to bloom with apples. That night, during another magic session, Lloyd becomes curious about something called ancient magic. However, his master quickly dismisses it, telling him it's a lost art from long ago and irrelevant to his current training. Instead, she begins teaching him more advanced skills like space magic, which lets users summon or store objects at will. His lessons intensify, and eventually, his master decides to push him further by blindfolding him and dropping him in an unfamiliar forest filled with monsters. Giving him nothing more than a kitchen knife, she instructs him to survive and return home within 7 days. She vanishes instantly, leaving Lloyd shaken. Moments later, a wild wolf appears and chases him through the woods. Lloyd narrowly escapes by climbing a tall tree. From there, he uses space detection to find his master's home far to the north. Determined, he begins walking. That night, he uses his healing spells to ripen nearby fruits and eats them for sustenance. He shelters in a small cave and begins constructing a magic circle to increase his physical strength. By tweaking his spells creatively, he makes them enhance his core attributes whenever activated. The next morning, while traveling, he stumbles into the territory of a massive queen spider. As the spider lunges, Lloyd sprints away and activates one of his newly adjusted spells, boosting his speed dramatically. The burst carries him all the way to his master's doorstep, where he collapses from exhaustion. She opens the door, smiles, and welcomes him home. Time moves on, and Lloyd matures. As he gets taller, he's allowed more freedom around the house. One day, while tidying his master's study, he finds a book about urban life and becomes intrigued by the idea of living among crowds, something he's never known. Meanwhile, his master continues her odd experiments, turning him into her full-time assistant. This leads to many sleepless nights. One morning, she heads to the rooftop to meet Lloyd, as she always does, still driven by the same purpose. She intended to punish him so harshly that he wouldn't even be able to stand. But once she reached the room, she found it empty. All she noticed was an open book, which seemed to be the last thing he had been looking at. Meanwhile, Lloyd wandered into the city for the first time. As he entered the marketplace, he was overwhelmed by the bustling crowd. The sheer number of people surprised him. It was almost overwhelming. He hadn't realized that so many people lived here. It was entertaining in a way. With no set objective, he simply explored and observed his surroundings. As he stood around, a flyer suddenly stuck to his face. At first, he assumed it was the wind, but in truth, someone had deliberately tossed it at him. Lloyd peeled it off and read that a group was searching for an adventurer to join them. With nothing better to do, he decided to check it out. Upon arriving, he witnessed an adventuring party locked in combat with a beast. The team was in rough shape, and their leader, Alan, ordered the mage to use healing magic. She obeyed immediately, and the fight resumed. She also bound the creature with her spells to give Alan an opening. With that, Alan finished off the monster. The rest of the group surrounded him, praising his victory. Lloyd, unimpressed, turned and quietly walked off. Outside, people in the village were buzzing about Alan's greatness, praising his recent conquest of the Cyclops from Abertuff Castle with his squad. Back at their lodging, Alan distributed their earnings. Surprisingly, he handed a portion to Lloyd. Alan explained that it was Lloyd's share, even though he was considered a deranked adventurer. Lloyd accepted it silently and left without saying anything. His quiet attitude confused the others. Alan brushed it off arrogantly, claiming that white mags didn't matter much in real adventures and were mainly there for show. Lloyd overheard this but showed no reaction. He calmly shut the door behind him and departed. Elsewhere, his mentor was visited at home. It was the same person who had thrown the flyer at Lloyd earlier. The man informed her that Lloyd had joined Alan's group. She reacted calmly, stating that she didn't care what path Lloyd took, as long as he stayed humble. The man asked if she still held regrets from the past. She simply said she didn't want history to repeat. They recalled the battle with the Demon Lord. Back then, everyone had perished, until Sybil stepped forward. Using forbidden ancient magic, he brought back everyone at the cost of his own life. Right now, the hero party is gearing up for another battle. Even before it begins, people are already cheering for them, confident they'll come out victorious like always. The moment the fight starts, Alan quickly wraps it up and heads back with the team chanting his name in celebration. Back at home, Sheena, the mage of the group, decides to dive into her books again. She believes there's always room to improve, especially defensively. Alan approaches her, curious why she's studying so intensely. She explains her concern about their defenses weakening lately. Alan disagrees, insisting he's only getting stronger. She points out he hasn't trained in a while, but he confidently replies that he doesn't need to, he's unbeatable now. Sheena doesn't argue, just watches him silently. That evening, a golem attacks soldiers near the riverbank, leaving no survivors. The kingdom acts quickly and sends word to Alan, asking him to take care of the threat. He accepts the mission right away. Alan heads out with his team. Lloyd uses his abilities to pinpoint the golem's location. As they arrive, they find a mysterious figure beside the golem, a creature with a staff. Lloyd warns the team that this is no ordinary enemy, it's from the demon race, and it's controlling the golem through the staff. Alan tells Lulu to fire an arrow at the demon, and she does. He also instructs MIA to prepare for combat. Alan plans to charge straight at the golem, but Lloyd tries to stop him, saying it's reckless. He insists he understands the golem's power and weaknesses better and urges Alan to hold back. Alan snaps, reminding Lloyd who leads the team. Ignoring him, Alan dashes forward. But Lloyd, still worried, moves ahead to shield Alan and ends up pushing him away. Alan shoves Lloyd aside in return and strikes the golem, defeating it instantly. The moment proves Lloyd's warning was off the mark. Back home, Alan accuses Lloyd of being useless, saying he's contributed nothing since joining and left all the healing work to Sheena. Alan demands he leave the party. Lloyd doesn't argue, he agrees, calling himself weak, and walks away. The others celebrate his departure as a relief. For the next 3 days, Lloyd tries to join other parties but keeps getting turned down. Just when things seem hopeless, he overhears a woman urgently asking for an unaffiliated white mage. A guild staff member asks if she's talking about Lloyd. She turns to him, confirms he's not part of any party, and before he can say more, she grabs him and runs off with him. Thanks for watching. If you like this anime recap, then please like, share and subscribe for the next part.